Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to the Breaking Point podcast. We are here on episode number 58 and it's been a fantastic weekend in the COD scene. Loads happening, roster drama all across the timeline, at least theoretical ones, some roster changes actually going down, some updates to the game that hopefully will improve some things, and we're here to talk all about it today. EasyMac's back joining us, Lionman's here again. How are we doing, Austin? Good week for you guys. Of course we'll dive into it, but plenty else to discuss today.
Yeah, doing good. Getting back into practice. Just had a busy week, and getting ready before. I think we have 1 week until we're back in Minnesota for another LAN. So should be a good time.
Yeah. I mean, I've just been designing a whole bunch, working on Breaking Point stuff. It's very, very exciting. The Dashy video is going crazy. I think we've gained like 1.2k subs in the last like 24 hours on our channel, which is
nutty.
The biggest jump we've had. So that's exciting. But yeah, I'm just excited to talk about COD once again, boys.
That video was great. Shout out Omar and Dabs for pulling it together. We actually turned that around very quickly because it didn't take me all that long to. I mean, Dabs helped me a bit with the research. I mean, I wrote the script in, I want to say, probably 2 days, probably 2 evenings. I don't know. I didn't actually. It took me less long because I spent ages doing the Scump and Crim one. It took me ages to do that. This one I smashed out really quick, so promising because we can do more. I think the one that was great about this really was because it just hit the timing so well. Like, it made perfect sense for the Dashy Doc to be now, and also everything else about the video was great. So shout out everyone involved. If you haven't watched it already, feel free to give it a view. As I said earlier, it'll probably already be on your YouTube recommended, so you probably won't have to try too hard. Okay, here we go then. We've got some changes to the game. So apparently, control ticks are now a thing, that this is actually going to be the case. I don't know if you know, Austin, whether they're going to play with that for this week or whether it's going to be delayed until stage 3, as it would be. The other things, apparently the aim assist glitch has been fixed. Also, the bomb has changed on, I don't know if anyone wants to bring this up on the screen, but the bomb site has moved on Bocage, the A bomb, from inside the building, where it was probably too easy to plant, to now outside on the little platform there, where it's interesting, because if you get it down there, it may be even easier to defend, but it should probably be easier to stop them getting it down. So it's actually a rather interesting move. I think it probably makes sense because getting the bomb down on the other side was just, you could never really do it unless it was a clutch situation. So look, anyway, I'll open it up with a control tick, Austin. Obviously, we've been hoping for this for quite some time. I think you guys mentioned, like on your Gavutu controls, for example, it would be beneficial to you guys in particular, or people just wanted it in. So, it's here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're playing with it this weekend. I'm pretty sure that's like an ASAP fix. Because I'm pretty sure everyone, including fans, players, CDL, wants that in about ASAP. They wanted it in like 3 weeks ago, probably 2 months ago. But I think, I don't know, people are kind of conflicted because I was watching the flank and people were saying that the control ticks won't change that much. I think it changes a lot because right now, like what I like about Call of Duty is you think about the best modes, you have to think as soon as you spawn. Like in CTF, you have to spawn in. Do I overextend? Do I go rotate my base? The same thing with uplink. Same thing with hardpoint. Am I going to go fight for scrap or am I going to rotate? Right now in Control, you spawn, well, yesterday in Control and before that, you would spawn up and the first thought in your mind is, do I want to go waste my life? Do I want to save my life or not? And that's not strategy. This is horrible. So like right now, like the control ticks, basically what that changes is defense round 5 is determined by ticks. So every offense now, you have to try your best to get more and more ticks. The only thought process you have is how to best get a tick. And for defense, you have to think, do I want to give up the easy ticks? Like on Gavutu, do I want to give up the A point as easy? Do I want to, on Tuscan, do I want to fight more for A point? Right? And that's where you get, one, it gets a little bit easier for offenses to chain hills. Because let's say a team on Tuscan, the defensive team really overcommits on A, loses all their lives, then you can chain that A point to B and take a risk there, and that's where you're going to see, you won't see like offense win 60% of rounds, but you'll see it go from like, I think it's like 22, you'll see it go from 22%, probably around like 40, 45-ish. That's what happened last year. For anyone that doesn't remember, Garrison had a change in the mid-year where it went from kills to ticks. And at the beginning of the year, the spawn trap was just absurd. But it was a spawn trap because teams really didn't try to get out of it because they were like, we don't want to waste lives trying to
You
get out of
couldn't
it.
risk challing the bridge,
Yeah.
you know. You had to
And
just
so
hide.
it was like a death sentence to get trapped in that. And obviously there was another change with the plat, but as soon as it went to the tiers or the tiers captured, everybody had to learn how to get out of that spawn trap. Everyone got really good and it went from like 12% win rate to like 45 by the end of the year. So yeah, I think this is a big change. I personally think it's going to, teams that are more aggressive are going to like this. Teams that are more defensive, they're going to have to rethink whether they want to give the easy ticks away. Like, do we want to be so stationary in the back and let them get A for free? Do we want to risk that? It's going to be a lot more thinking and communicating in game, which is the part I like about Control. I loved Control at the end of last year. It got so much better.
Yeah, it was great.
I really want to see if the maps get better. I want to see if they get better because I think Gavutu works. It honestly works in Hardpoint. I want to see if we can turn it around and what the attacking strategy is going to be now. I don't think you're going to see as many spawn traps because teams aren't just going to lay down anymore. They're going to have to fight it out of it.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of strange that it's this late in the year every time that we get this change. Like, we've proven the last 2 years of Control that it's better with ticks. It's more even on both sides. This year, it's just like last year. It takes a while to come into the game. I don't have much more to add because you destroyed that, Austin.
I think Austin nailed it, yeah. The other thing I'll just throw in real quick before we discuss where the bomb is on Bocage is like, do you think, because Turtle put some very interesting stats in the chat that you guys in FaZe have actually the most ticks captured in the whole league.
To put it even more perspective, that's horrible. We have like the best ticks captured, but the worst win rate.
Really, yeah. Well, in fairness, you probably maybe you played more series or maps than other teams just because of how the brackets have worked out. But still, that's pretty interesting. Whereas on the OpTic side, I don't know how good their tick captured rate is, but I just know that they're very good at getting the life lead on their defenses, which has helped them a lot get defense in round 5. So I do wonder here whether we're going to see a kind of, because right now they're 13-1 on Control. They barely lose a Control ever, which is incredibly important for them in their series so far. And if their win rate goes down slightly because they, I don't know, just the way Dashy's unreal at getting kills on defense on Tusk and Control, but now that kills don't matter as much, then that actually won't necessarily, in theory, their win rate's not going to stay that way for the rest of the season, you would well think. But this might be kind of a turning point where they need to start, making sure they're consistent with all of the other modes, because the Control isn't going to be a free W every series. That's what I would think. Yeah, lead average. Okay, that's interesting from Turtle as well. So they lead average ticks per round as well, which is okay. Yeah, so OpTic is definitely also good on the point, but
yeah,
you would expect that, I guess, from a 13-1 team in Control.
But yeah, the only other thing was the bomb site change on Bocage. I want to see how that plays out because I would kind of like it for those who haven't seen it. I think we just put it on screen. It's literally in the middle of the platform. I almost wish it was hugging the wall of the platform.
Yeah.
Because right now there's a tank in the back of spawn that you can literally sit on and just watch the cross to it on defense, and it's just absurd.
How the hell are you planting that bomb?
It's just absurd. So it's going to be very hard to plant on that. So I think that's going to be an interesting change we're going to have to look forward to in the next couple of weeks and see how that plays out. That was my only concern. If it hugs the wall, like for those who remember on Checkmate, the bomb site in the outer, it hugged the wall, so you didn't have to slide out. You could kind of hug it and get the plant in. I think that would be a little bit better of a change because it's still a risk to plant because you're outside, you're not in a room, but it's still kind of safe in part of the bomb site. Right now, it's really not safe anywhere, so it'll be interesting.
I do like it more than how it was originally because I prefer S&D sites where it's easier to hold on defense, but it's also easier to hold post plant for offense. Like how it was previously, it reminded me of the bomb site on Checkmate in the plane. It's like close quarters, really easy for SMGs to get a 2-piece if they get the right play. So I do prefer it more in the open, but we just have to see how it plays.
Yeah, the map I was kind of reminded of when you said that, Austin, was I don't know if you guys remember Scorch from Infinite Warfare, but they moved the bomb site around on the map a lot because it was so, I think it was the B bomb. It was so easy for offense. Like at the start of the game, you could literally just run to the bomb site and get it down because it was just sitting in a place where it was basically a 50-50 fight and it was a free plan for the offense, and it was kind of in like that hug position. Then they moved it to be closer to the defensive spawn, but it actually got way too easy to defend there because you could see it from all the way at the back. There was nowhere you could plant safe. So then what they did is they moved it again back to where it was a little bit further, but it was in a slightly different spot where the defense couldn't see it from everywhere, and that worked out being better. So they might have to play around with it a little bit, right? Because moving it outside makes sense, but if you can't just see it from the tank, then it seems a bit too easy to hold.
Yeah.
Didn't they end up just getting rid of Scorch though entirely? Like before?
They actually might have done, yeah. Very possible. It was the most annoying about to play GBs at the start. Yeah, throwback to Scorch.
I think there was actually one other big change too. That was the Tuscan spawns on defense.
Oh, yes.
On both control and S&D actually. Now the defending team is actually closer on control, which is kind of interesting. But on defense, on S&D, I don't mind it because now the defense gets to the U part of the bomb site faster than the attacking team. So we're not going to see those just lightning fast plants that Seattle are actually very, very good at. That's like their specialty. Like I track average plant time, and Mac is the quickest planter in the league on that map because he literally just runs mid and then plants. But now defenses are going to have the upper hand on that. So it's gonna be a major shift. We might see more P5 hits to that B bomb site, or we might see more mid takes to Church. It's gonna be very interesting how offensive teams kind of combat that change. I actually like that a little bit.
I think it's true in control as well, is it not? So I mean, it probably only affects the break, but still quite a big deal because that's the thing. It's not just the plants in search, but it's also the fact that capping that A point in control is pretty hard to stop if the offense committed to it. But now the defense might have a chance to actually set up over there. So don't know, because I don't know, like control's good on Tuscan. It's the best map, obviously, for it. But it is always a bit strange when one of the sites is like, it gets capped 90% of the time. Like you kind of want it to be a little bit more even, but anyway.
Well, a low-key thing too that I haven't seen yet anywhere is Berlin was fixed, I believe. In the patch notes, I saw that. And if Berlin is indeed fixed,
actually.
Third control right there. That's automatic. You can just write that in as a third control if the initial spawns are fixed. Obviously, teams are still going to have to practice on that, see if the overall spawns are good. But if the initial spawns are better, because if I remember right, the offensive team was able to cap a site for free right off the rip because they spawned too close to it. If that is fixed, like that's a big W. I think I thought I saw that on the patch notes. So if that's fixed,
Hopefully that's the case.
We can finally start getting some more maps in for Major 3.
Yeah, and CDL domination was added to the game. I can't imagine that was intentional, Austin. But maybe we go back to our roots, baby.
I'm not worried about playing Dom. We are not playing Dom. I will that is. Leave that mode in MW, bro. Leave that mode in MW.
Do you think they're going to bring it back next year?
Oh, please.
They might.
Bro, I don't know.
Really hope.
I would rather take TDM. Let's go play TDM, bro.
Kill confirmed would be genuinely a better mode.
I actually think I would be down for kill confirm. Like just straight 10 minutes, and then you know how long the game is. Because I think some of the annoying things about control is can it be 3 rounds or 5 rounds? And sometimes controls can take 18 minutes. Whereas kill confirmed, you got 10 minutes. Whoever wins, wins. So even if you're camping in spawn for 10 minutes, at least I know how long the game is.
Yeah. In my opinion, I've always liked Slayer the most in Halo. And we've talked about this quite a bit, and it's been quite a touchy subject. But honestly, kill confirmed would be kind of hype. Because I like that when it gets to 48, 49 in Halo, and it's close, and it's 1 or 2 kills shifts the entire game. I don't know. We could see it one day.
Seacart, hope you're listening. Okay, let's talk teams. Before we get into the matches, New York, they've done something. They've made a move. Clay's on the bench. Porlex is in. Pretty much what we predicted. We thought there might be a 2-man change here, but there was all this talk about the fact that they were considering a 2-man move. They wanted to get someone in instead of Neptune, but they didn't do that because I think they reached out to Hixie from Toronto. That didn't go anywhere. Then they tried to get Havok, and Havok said no because he prefers his challenger team and he wanted to bring Kismet and he preferred Clayster's mindset around leading the team rather than Crim's. Therefore, he declined the spot. And, well, there's been a lot of backlash and discussion about that in general, whether the spot even arrives for Havok in the future, whether it will turn out to be a good or a bad decision, who knows? But, I mean, yeah, they make a move. Obviously, we'll talk about their match going forwards in a few minutes' time here, but they did take down Paris. They won 2 hardpoints, unbelievable scenes. So, I mean, yeah, initial thoughts, they look better. What do you think about the whole Havok stuff line? Like, interesting move. Will it even work out better for them in the sense that Neptune actually played a great series? And he mentioned after the fact that he felt a lot more comfortable on the map in this kind of maybe new system where Crim's the main AR. And I wonder if that kind of idea of benching your main AR and putting your flex to a main AR could come in handy for other teams. We'll talk about that in a few minutes' time.
Yeah, I think the move that they've made currently obviously worked because they look a lot better. With the Havok change, though, I can't really blame Havok because he has some good points. He mentioned that he wanted to play with Kismet and that his team currently is like a really good dynamic. I feel like what he's hoping for is an expansion of a league where their team dominates challenges this entire year, and then that whole team is picked up. But as we've seen in the past, that's unlikely to happen. Like with Westar last year, that's what they wanted. And they just got picked up separately, and then none of them really stayed in the league apart from Paul, who's back in. So yeah, I don't know. Oh, and Gravity, obviously. But I think that yeah, weird decision, but I think that the backlash he got, especially from Aches, was a little bit uncalled for. You reckon, Austin?
I mean, I don't hate it. I don't hate like the not going to NY. Just because obviously if you don't feel comfortable in the team, you don't want to just burn your stock, which I kind of agree with. Like they're the number 1 challengers team right now. If he's not comfortable in that position, I don't think we should flame him because obviously I don't know. He obviously preferred Kismet. He based off that, I think the roster would have been what, like Clay, Kismet, him. I don't even know because if you him and Kismet are SMGs though. So what is Hydra moving to an AR? But
Hydra to the bench, baby. Kismet's coming in.
But I don't want to roast him because I really don't know the dynamics of all that or the offer. It could have this. He might not even like the offer, but for what they have, like Crim played amazing on that main AR. But again, it was just Paris. So I want to see them square up the teams like that aren't the worst team in the league. Because as Paris tweeted out, that was battle for last. So now we know who 11 and 12 are. But I want to see New York against some team, like some good respawn teams. Because I mean, if you look at their matches, they were getting just hella outslayed every single time. And I don't know if a 1-for-1 switch changes much personally. I think they're still going to have some slaying issues. I want to see if that's figured out. Historically, I don't really know if there was many 1-to-1 changes that have like completely reinvigorated the team, like to the point where they're championship contenders. But I do want to give them the benefit of the doubt because I actually like New York. So hopefully it does work out. Hopefully they'll be able to fight some of the midfield teams because right now like the bottom, like the 7 through 12 is actually kind of close. So you can definitely fight your way up into like an upper bracket start at majors, and then who knows what can happen from there.
I kind of like cut you off and said Insight, but I feel like that's the one that's really
yeah.
Insight and Standy, but that's just in the last 2 years. Really, historically, it doesn't change much. Yeah,
agreed. Yeah.
Because in those instances, you had other players step up big time. So if that does happen, I guess you would probably need Crim and Neptune to really step up with Paul doing well. If that happens, then yeah, they can definitely be like a more of a dark horse. I would put them on like with Florida actually, because I think Florida's like that dark horse team that could make deep runs. If they can do that, then that would be pretty nice. I would like to see more competitive midfield teams. I feel like that would be pretty awesome if that happens.
Yeah, and I think that the 1-person change is also really good for like teams' mindset. It's like a reset for a lot of players, I would assume. And so I think that could make a big difference because getting that win straight away was huge. And it was a good win as well, winning 2 hard points. So, nice.
I mean, the final map was dominant. Like, they just 80-point clubbed them, which is probably one of the most dominant wins I've seen so far this year, if not probably like the most dominant. I don't know. Not many games get 100-point club this season, just the way the games play. of course, the other part of this is the Clayster piece, right? Like he says he wants to keep competing. That's his intention. He said that even if he has to wait a month, like after stage 2, after stage 3, even into next season, he's willing to do that if he has to. Honestly, if he doesn't get a spot by the rest of this year, it's probably chalked, because at that point he'll be thinking, well, I need to make sure I lock up a next step, whether that's GM, coach, commentary, doing what Aches is doing, who knows.
Zinni, though.
That's a fair point, actually. It happened to Zinni, and he did the streaming thing. And in fairness, Clayster has mentioned that he wants to go hard on streaming. Then he makes the return. So it's possible. And to be fair, Zinni's been around so many years anyway, so I can't really talk about the fact that Clay's at the end of his career, when Zinni, you'd have thought maybe he was at the end of his career after all the years he's competed.
Yeah. With Clay, though, or like with just players in general, the best thing for your stock is to grow your fan base. The league is driven by personalities. And if Clay gets he already has a massive fan base, but if he grows like his content, he's suddenly one of the highest needed players in the league for views. So, I mean, that's pretty much what Zinni did. He just has the skills to back it up now, Yeah,
he's been great this year. So, I mean, look, Clayster, what teams could he theoretically go to? Because this is the thing also with Havok, right, is that you decline New York, but what team is going to give you an opportunity that's going to be better than New York? Like, at least in terms of ceiling, with the players, the greatest of all time in Crimsix, player like Hydra, he might not get a better opportunity, at least in terms of being able to prove himself on a team that can potentially make a run up towards, Championship Sunday and the like. So, there's Florida. They need a leader, probably. That's an option. At the same time, I just don't feel like that's going to work, because Florida don't like spending any money. Getting Clay out of his contract is going to be not cheap at all. It probably will take another heavy-hitting organization to do that. And then the other teams, just the way I'm looking at a lot of these rosters, and I think this also might be a conversation with Thieves, is that, well, if the main AR isn't performing that well, as in we've seen this on a few rosters really, there's either ARs that are great. It seems that there's no real ARs in between. You've either got your Zero, your Arstes, who's been he's been pretty damn good, definitely right up there. Dashi, of course, Zero. And Methods, maybe I said Methods, I don't know. They've been playing great as of late. ARs on top 4 teams in the game, I guess. After that, you've got some ARs that have been, I guess, semi-mediocre, and then some, the likes of Octane, Clayster, Slasher to a degree, Accuracy, that have, and I guess you can look at like Paris and stuff as well, that have really struggled. So, and what New York have done is bench their main AR, put their flex to a main, and then brought in, another flex in this case, but they could bring in another type of player as well. So I just wonder, if you are a Minnesota, or if you are a Los Angeles Thieves, or if you are a Seattle, I don't know, and you're thinking, well, maybe Accuracy isn't quite bringing to the table all we thought he could be, and Clayster could be a swap. It's like, do you really want to make that move just because, based on what Clay did so far this season, there's no evidence really to me to say that he's going to make any of those teams any better, unless there's any existing chemistry or, Clayster would attach, I guess, on Minnesota. But I just don't really see it happening, to be perfectly honest. What do you think, Lion?
I agree 100%. Get onto another team after being on arguably the worst team in the history of the CDL is a tough thing to do. He's probably one of the only players that could rebound straight back onto another team. I just can't see any team, because no team was worse than them previously with their old roster. Why would you add someone who just came off a team that got better when he left, other than for like leadership? And I don't, especially players like Accuracy, I don't think Clay brings much more than Accuracy does to his team. So in my opinion, I think he's just going to have to wait for potentially expansion next year, if that does happen.
Yeah, I think we saw it with Zinni. Zinni obviously got benched at stage 1 last year, didn't play at all after that, and still came back this year, and he's performing like amazing so far this year. So I don't think sitting out the rest of the year is going to kill him necessarily if he still has that hunger. For teams that could use him, I mean, maybe two. Like, this is, I'm being more pessimistic. I think maybe Minnesota, if they don't do well. But even Minnesota, like, I don't think Mike is necessarily the issue there, and I think attach should be a main AR, so I don't think you would go that route. The only other one may be Paris. Like, I think maybe there's a world where Donnie gets traded to a little bit better team because he's actually doing really, really well. And if another team buys out Donnie, that is somewhere where it could work. where he comes in.
I
And
still would just be like, imagine that though.
I
Like,
mean,
it's just such a depressing way to end your career on Paris.
Yeah.
Like, Clayton doesn't want to do that to himself.
I mean, if you want a spot, that's
well,
that's
I
kind of where you
know,
gotta go.
but
I'm the
yeah.
Havok. Like, I think Havok's gonna have a lot more opportunities than Clay, just because like even right now, I don't want to be negative on anybody, but like Draza has a .73 so far this stage. He's been really overwhelming. Like, I could see Havok going there. I could see Havok. Like, there is other potential destinations for him. Like maybe an LAG if they continue to not perform as well. So like a bunch of these players, like you gotta kind of stay active, be in eights, be streaming, be as active as you can be, and some of these teams are going to be more like they're going to get upset with bad placements and then they'll react based off of that. So there's always going to be a world where they could come in and still make a team this year. And I don't really necessarily think it's a death sentence, like player, like career death sentence if a player sits out a year and then comes back next year. It is more of a death sentence if you do that and then come back in and still they just don't have it. But that's the risk. You kind of got to play with it,
Yeah, I agree. I'm not really sure what happens next. The thing is with Clayster is that you don't really want. I don't know. If I'm Clayster, I'm thinking about my legacy, and I'm thinking about the fact that right now, if I were to retire today, I go down as one of the greatest of all time. With okay, whatever. The final roster didn't work out. It is what it is. People will forget about that. They'll remember the World Championships. They'll remember all this stuff. If you, and I know, like he does want to still compete, which is fine. And it's great to see the passion and the drive is still there, but I don't know. If I'm Clay, I'm probably thinking in part of my head, like, look, if I do come back and make a return on a worse team and have a tough time this year and the next year, if I decide to come back as well on whatever roster and I'm fighting for like top 8, top 6, then you kind of your career kind of fizzles out, if you know what I mean. And I think Clace is someone like he's talked a lot before about his like legacy and the way that he wants to be perceived after he retires. And I think that's an important thing for players at this point of their career to think, to be honest. You want to think about how you're being remembered. And people remember the last, like, how things ended, at least if it lasts for a fair bit of time. So if it's me and I'm Clay, I'm thinking, look, I don't really want to be on a bad team for the next 2 years and then retire anyway. Yes, I make some more paper, but it doesn't have the same allure and feeling as it would if you go out on a relative high after a solid last couple of years. I don't know if you guys agree with that. I don't know if it really matters to your guys' perceptions, but to me, I don't think you want your career to fizzle out.
I mean, I agree, but there's never been a pro ever that has left after a tournament win. Done like a Nico Rosberg, won and then said goodbye. Beautiful.
There is one actually. Wait, is there one? Well, I don't know. I saw it in a Brian Stats thing, but I think it might be fake news now. But no, Swanee. Swanee technically did. He was meant to go to champs, but he couldn't go to champs. Yeah, but he did win stage 2 playoffs on Millennium in Europe, and then he didn't go to champs. So technically he went out on a win, but that doesn't really count. But outside of that, you're right. I'm not necessarily saying you have to win the tournament to go out on a high, but I agree.
It would just be so sick if Clay came back, won a tournament, tied like Ake's amount of chips, because Ake's has 20, Clay has 19.
Oh, really? Okay, well there you go. That is a reason to keep competing.
I don't know. It just depends on how hungry he is, because I don't think it lowers your career at all. It just depends on how like hungry you are to keep winning. I mean, if you think about the age of some of these guys, like what is he? He's 29. Like that is prime age for any other sport. Not prime age. It might be a couple like 2 years beyond your prime, but that's usually
before prime's like 30, 31.
Well, I mean, in like most sports here, I feel like it's 27's like your prime, and then like you're pretty much in that zone until probably like your mid 30s. Like you can stay at that high. I really don't see why Clay, like if Clay's still hungry, I don't see why he can't make another team, come in here and keep doing well. So that's just my thing. It just depends on how much he wants to win. I do feel like we gotta be near expansion, or gotta be near at least something. And if that does come in the future, I do believe it will open up a lot of doors for some of these veterans to do what London's doing, do what Seattle's doing, be that veteran presence, guide up some rookies. So I don't necessarily want to say like these guys are going to fade away. I definitely think if he does the Sean Gayers route where he's either an analyst, a coach, a GM. I feel like he's gonna stay around the scene no matter what. So it's not really goodbye with him. It's just let's see what he does next. That's what I'm kind of more excited for.
That's fair enough. Okay, let's dive into these matches. We discussed the New York versus Paris one before. I did want to talk about Paris briefly because I feel like despite making some changes, they are just forever underwhelming. They looked good against London briefly, even though we can talk about the fact that London didn't really come out particularly hot there. Then they get reverse swept. In fairness to John, I think people have been talking about John lately, but I wanted to give him a shout out really because I think at times, and especially in the control and the search and destroy, his hardpoint hasn't been generally great. But when he has a good hardpoint, they actually quite often win. But in control and search, I think John's actually been very impactful, and Temp has been honestly pretty fantastic to be honest. So Gravity hasn't been great since he joined, and then there's Jimbo who had a good series, and then two pretty much stinkers. And Fellow's probably sitting there thinking, well, he benched me a bit prematurely here, or didn't even bench me, just straight up dropped me, didn't even keep the contract on board. So look, they make a couple of changes, but congratulations, you're still top 12. So it does make me wonder. I mean, even you made an interesting point, Austin. They're like, what if another team says, look, Temp will. We'll pay Paris like 100K or something, and we'll get him out of there. Paris will agree to it because they want the cash, but that makes it even worse. So that's the thing. If they can't even hold on to their best performing player, and the other new players they brought in haven't really given them any results. I mean, the loss to London's acceptable. The loss to New York is like, well, that's one you can't really afford to lose if you actually want to make up this charade of that you're going to be competitive this season, which frankly isn't going to happen in this stage. So I don't really know what they do. They tried something, but I wonder if they're going to try again, to be honest. What do you think, Austin?
I think they might, but in all honesty, I'm just happy they're actually competing a little bit. Besides the
They're going to go with it. In fairness, I'll give it to them.
The New York one they got smoked, but the London one wasn't that it was a reverse sweep for London, right? Like Paris was up 2-0, they were fighting back.
Reverse swept 2 series in a row because they did the same against Minnesota the series before.
Yeah, I would rather them be fighting back at least. Like that's all we want is just the bottom teams to still be able to fight. We don't want what was happening like more last year where stuff gets too easy on the bottom side of it. Hopefully they keep improving because I mean Jimbo obviously had a rough week. He did have a semi decent bounce back. Tom's been struggling a little bit, but at least there's a foundation to improve upon. Like I feel like that's what we can look at here. Maybe they do one more piece change, but one of the more positive notes is like what Temp's doing. I think this is why veterans that have the opportunity to join these teams should do that because you see him. Maybe some of his kills aren't the most impactful, but he's definitely fighting back. He looks good when it's on him. One of the things I really liked was when they did a voice. I think it was a Bocage hardpoint. The comms were a little bit slow by the rest of the team, and he was just like on them, like give me more. We can do this. Like what's going on? Why are we being quiet? Fight back. Like, I like that out of him. He was trying to pull out like more energy out of his teammates, and I actually respect. I think that's really respectful out of the veteran there. So I feel like if there is another offer from a team that is struggling, that should be more on the top 6 like scale. I don't see why not. You kind of poke the coals to see how Paris thinks of Temp like moving him because that's where one thing where I think Temp would be a pretty good acquisition for a number of teams. So you never know. You might be seeing that. I don't know when the trade deadline or buyout like roster lock is for champs, but if Donnie can keep continuing at this level, I don't see why some of these teams might try to do a wild card and see what they can get out of him and their roster,
Why not? We're back, baby. Yeah, the one for episode. We love it.
I just wanted to touch on that New York Paris series. Paris got smoked regardless of Paulix not even dropping a positive KD. Like the core of that original New York team.
That's so bad. That's bad.
Which is
pretty tragic.
And then when we look at the London series, it was Gizmo's first series back, wasn't it? And so like his comms and stuff and everything just wasn't cohesive until the third map, and they got bodied. So I don't know what you do with this Paris team. It does seem like the two guys they've brought in just haven't meshed well with the players that are there. But team's looking really good. I just don't know really what they do from this point. Or nothing much to add on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, I'm excited about because right now it's free Donny, and I do think that his attitude actually seems great this year. He seems positive, seems upbeat, seems like he's trying to improve and put in the time, which is exactly what you need to do. So hope everything works out for him and the guys on Paris in general. But still, I'm going to roast the org when the chance arises. We'll talk about London because they beat Paris. They reverse swept them as just discussed. Of course, like Gizmo comes back. They came out slow, certainly in their first series. I think they'd had maybe a couple of days to scrim with Gizmo since he'd been back. He hadn't played any COD in like 12 days. So there's going to be a bit of a Rust type period there. I think like he came out, or the thing Zero said afterwards that he felt like they were kind of, their comms were like they were in scrims or something. The intensity wasn't there. And then they turned it around game 3. I mean, their Gavutu control, which I think is what they played that series, is just so dominant that they can just like flip a switch and bounce back in a series. It's so good to have that in your back pocket that you can just come out and win 2 offenses on a Gavutu and just get all the momentum back. And then the game 4 was close, but they closed out in the end. They win the game 5. The FaZe series is also very interesting because they're, again, unbelievably good at Gavutu control, the map they won in that series. I think the map that kind of concerned me was the fact that they got pretty much blown out on Bocage S&D, even though the way that map plays is probably going to change a fair bit now with the way the bomb site has moved. So maybe they'll have to think about that. But they're very good at that map in general until this one. So I guess FaZe had some counter strats in the book. But and also playing FaZe a series after they've just lost is usually never a good time. And the respawns were very close. Like I feel like FaZe were comfortably the better team, but both of the hard points were very tight. I think probably too close for comfort on the FaZe perspective. And especially that game 4, they could have arguably won it and gone to game 5. And FaZe have been hardly convincing in game 5s as of late. So, for me, London is still a top 3 team in the game. I think with a bit more time with Gizmo, they will still prove to be there. But I think that right now they're just showing that they have issues with FaZe and OpTic. Like, I think that's every team's going to have issues with those 2 rosters, but I think London in particular, the way they play and the way they rely on their slaying means that when they play a team with just unbelievable slaying like FaZe, they're going to get just slightly outdone, which is something they're going to have to think about. But what was your thinking about that, Austin, from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, when they played us, well, I'll touch on the Paris one. I was just happy they didn't lose that. Like that's the Rust where you kick off the Rust kind of series. I think they're clear cut still the number 3 team. I like them a lot. I like a lot of their pieces. They're going to continue to get better, I think, once they keep like meshing and growing together. One thing is we saw like our strategies kind of like meshed where we were both like break heavy on the hard points, which was kind of funny to watch. I mean, I think the first map was kind of like not too close. I think we won 250 to 190 on the Gavutu, but the Tuscan was super close. Like that was like that was making me sweat. I was just back and forth, man. I was just like, damn. But yeah, I just definitely think like they're the number 3 team. Like when you're looking at like tiers, it's like OpTic and us, them, and like their own tier, and then like I feel like the top midfield and then the rest. And I feel like they could very easily just win a tournament, right? I feel like they're one of the team where they catch fire one day, they're going to win a tournament. I do believe that they can. I've been really happy to see both their rookies do really, really well. I'm a big fan of Gizmo, big fan of Nasty, so I was really happy with their performances. I feel like this was kickoff kind of Rust week. They're going to come back strong next week. They obviously have a really tough matchup that they pretty much, if they want to be a higher seed, have to win, I believe, because I think they face Boston, and they're 3-1 right now. So if they don't win that, they'll end up 3-2, which will still probably be good for like a 4 or 5 seed. But when you have the 2 controls, you want to be the higher the better. So that will be a really interesting matchup for them to look forward to. If they can win that, then they're kind of cruising going into this major. They'll be looking good.
Yeah, they look really good. They give me like OpTic early Black Ops 4 vibes, like kind of that 3rd spot, but can't really compete with the top 2. But if we look at the points right now, it's OpTic on 125, Atlanta on 120, London on 110, so they're right behind Atlanta. And then 4th place is 40 points below Boston on 70.
That's mad, actually.
That's funny.
there's a clear top 3 right now, and they're right in there. So I think it's any of those 3 that could be the favorites coming into the next event, depending on how they're looking. I have to say.
Yeah, I always like, I don't know, watching London. Hopefully they'll get back to that kind of the series when they had Paul and they beat Los Angeles Thieves is probably the most impressive series I've seen them play all year. So I think that they can get to that point with Gizmo, and sometimes they just have this like crazy takeover ability, which is very rare for European teams to have, that they can just flip a switch and crush you for like 2 minutes straight. Even Toronto, I don't think, had that ability even when they were at the peak of their powers last year. They kind of a grind you out type team. We'll talk about Toronto in a second. Wanted to discuss FaZe because a massively important week for you guys to come in here and go 2-0 after the loss to Seattle. I mean, look, beating London and Toronto as well, 2 big games. The victory against London we discussed. The Toronto series, though, was far from convincing, man. Honestly, I thought it was chalked up. I was actually preparing the thumbnail, and I had it prepared because Thieves got reverse swept that we'll talk about, and I had it ready to go. And I was like, shit, I might have to make a change here. Might have to get, one of the FaZe lads on the thumbnail and change around some of the wording because it almost was chalked. The Gavutu control was crazy. Probably a map that you guys should have lost more convincingly than you did. But then it was weird because you won a crazy round 4, backs against the wall offense to get defense round 5, and then just completely collapse at the B point. I mean, Toronto made a great play, don't get me wrong, but that's the thing, that the control this year has not been quite as strong as it was, the dominant force that it was last year for FaZe. And then at game 4, Tuscan Hardpoint, again, another game where goes down to the wire, but Toronto had a 70-point lead at a time. They should have won that. And you go to a game 5, win the game 5. So still, look, 2-0 on the week. I mean, seem to be a team that, despite things not always looking great for you, you get over the line.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We still have in our last for Major 1 in the qualifiers, we still have a positive record in all the modes, which I mean I'll take. But the problem is like in that Toronto Gavitu control, we're obviously working on that a lot. Like that's one of the main focuses of practice every single day. Honestly, it should have been a 3-0. If you look at it, we won rounds 2 and 3. And if you look at that first attack, like 9, that has to be a round we got to capitalize on if we do that. But if then it's like inexcusable. Like the way I like to say it is like we're playing like 80% of the rounds, 85% of rounds, fantastic, and then we just I don't know, we just have to finish them off. The defense is just, I don't know. It's a work in progress. Obviously, practice results look a lot different than match results, but it's just a work in progress. We'll get there. I mean, we're still only 1 and 2 on it, and luckily, like our Tuscan is amazing. The problem is once we get 3 controls, the map will start getting a little bit more manageable. If you remember last year, we were amazing at Raid and Garrison. We barely played Checkmate, even though we could have easily played Checkmate. It was just the other 2 were that much better. That could be the same case this year, or we could switch it around. It's just right now working, expanding your map pool, because that should be the number 1 goal during the season, is just expanding map pool as much as you can. Hopefully we do get there, because that is something, we've been really, really working hard at in practice the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. You guys look really good. It's just like certain maps. And Gavutu is the one I've noticed the most. It's just a little bit iffy on. But I'm just wondering in practice, like what, other than Gavutu, what is the map that you're trying to improve on the most? You can really set it.
Yeah, I can't really say, but I mean, obviously, you go look at our map pools, you can see what we play and what we don't play. Like our practice is going amazing. Like the guys are putting in a lot of work. We're getting on doing a lot of odd work, a lot of just walking through stuff. It's going good. It's just translating that into matches. The matches haven't been as clean as we'd like them. One thing I am proud about is like our Gavutu hardpoint. I would say like us and OpTic are like the best on that map. We look really good. I think the only time we've lost Gavutu hardpoint is to OpTic. We've been beating pretty much, I think, everyone else on it. And our Bocage hardpoint, phenomenal. Our S&D is honestly pretty up there almost every map. I feel like there's like one map we really got to work on, and that's pretty much it. So it's just about, I really don't care about how we look in a best of 5. I care about how we look in a best of 9. And like right now, like that's our focus. expanding our map pool so when we get into a best of 9, like we feel confident on every map. That's where we were last year. That's where we're going to get to this year. It's just working on it. Yeah, because I mean, you listen to how OpTic's talking about it. They're doing the exact same thing. Our mentalities are pretty close right now on both of that. So I mean, that's just every day. It's just about getting better at something. Just working on the little things, working together as a unit. I mean, that's our guys. I'll give it to them. They are one of the hardest. I will say, they are the hardest working team in the CDL. They're like, trust me, they get pissed when we 3-1 a team because that means we did something wrong during the series. So like, they're hungry right now. You know, so it's just about making that translate into matches, and that's what we're working on the most. So we'll get there.
Scary sign for the competition. Go online.
Yeah, I was literally about to say the same thing. It's just like the 2 top teams right now are the hardest working, and it's really exciting to see where they meet and like where they'll be when they meet each time.
That's why I like listening to Ray. Like Ray talk, like he's literally same way I've been talking, saying like he says they won Major 1 and he was just like, yeah, that was sloppy, and I'm just like yeah, because it's Major 1, we got to continue working, right? Like Major 1 is not champs, like that is, you got to keep grinding, you got to keep foot on the pedal, and I like that mentality. That's the same mentality I have. I know he was on the flank talking about map pool. That is every good team. That is their one thing they need to be working on right now. Like at the end of the day, like barely anyone remembers who won homestands in Modern Warfare. I bet you can't tell me who won the most homestands unless you've gone back and counted, or who won every homestand. It doesn't matter. What matters is how you finish the year, and like building up that confidence in your team, building up your faith in your teammates, building up your map pool, and not getting discouraged by the little things, continuing to build on it. So that's something I think about.
So
who won the New York homestand last year?
I can tell you that one. That's pretty much the only one I know.
The New York homestand last year?
No,
well, I know because in Modern Warfare, New York. That was
that's good. Yeah, that's the only one people remember.
I can't tell you. I think
often the lad ones. I remember the lad ones.
Like us. I know us, Dallas, Florida, in Chicago. What did we win? Like 3 each, I think. I don't even know. I know
Chicago won like 1 LAN, 1 online, I think.
And Minnesota won 1, I think, right? Florida or New York won 1. But like at the end of the day, like I don't even think there was one dominant team in Modern Warfare. But I can tell you right now, Dallas were the most dominant team at champs, and that's all that matters. That's why you get the ring. So it's the same way. It's about just getting better each major, getting like working on stuff. Because right now we got to work on pretty much all 3 modes, I would say. So it's just about grinding in practice, keep doing little things, keep at it. It'll get better. Every team, especially with the control change and a lot of these map changes, I like that because it's a fresh look, it's fresh motivation, and I mean, I think we are going to get a lot better in control with the tick change, just because of how aggressive we are. Now we don't have to worry about lives; you can just get aggressive. All that matters is ticks. I like that, and I feel like that's what made us one of the most like deadly control teams in Cold War. Was just relentlessness, like. You don't give an inch, so I like that. I think that's going to help us a lot, and hopefully that translates into momentum into other modes too.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. I mean, the other one I guess was Ultra winning their own homestand as well, which happened at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to talk on FaZe here. That yeah, indeed it was. Methods 1v2 game 5, baby. So, okay, let's talk quickly. I don't know if you could bring this up on screen, Omar, because a big discussion went down, and I thought maybe this was going to get addressed or something was going to happen. There's been a lot of talk about the whole snaking thing, right? And the fact that over the last week or so, it seems like more and more teams have kind of stepped up the amount of snaking that's going on, probably because it's kind of like a you can do it too type thing. The other thing I did want to mention, though, is this Celium spot that's been used. I don't think I've seen anyone do it but Celium. I mean, it's a classic Celium type spot, really, on Gavutu over by the ring thing, and it gives you a nice angle to look down into where the B point is in the control. And to me, it seems like he's standing on top of something. So I don't really see why this should be disallowed per se. But there was some talk about whether this should be ruled on by the CDL as to whether this is a legal or an illegal spot, because I don't know how easy it is to shoot Selim out of this spot. I haven't really seen anyone else use it. If it's on the stream mobile, let me know. Okay, it's very easy. So, that's fair enough. But is it an interesting point, because spots like this where I think he is kind of standing on top of something, but at the same time, it's kind of like a pixel walk. I don't think there's anything actually there. He's just kind of on a ledge that doesn't really exist. It's kind of it's not too far off from the kind of Clayster Black Ops 3 spot where he was in a tree where, okay, he's standing on a tree. That was considered to be illegal at the time. They had to forfeit the entire series. So I'm not saying FaZe should have to forfeit a series, but I'm saying that there's been some suggestion that the CDL should come out for spots like this that could be considered controversial and say whether this is allowed or not. Because I wonder if the pros, clearly they know about this spot, and Selim's had good success using it, but no one really seems to use it right now. So I don't know. I thought it was an interesting point, Austin.
I mean, I'll touch on some stuff. One, fans make out way more of this stuff than any pro or team does. The spot is okayed. It's fine. I thought it was really funny. Fans wanted his head until Shotzi went on stream and said, it's not even a good spot. And then everyone doesn't care anymore. So it's like, and for Pixel Walk, like Shotzi's spot on like Tuscan could be argued to be a Pixel Walk, right?
Oh, in the corner there.
Yeah, and
That's a good one, actually. Yeah.
That's the thing, is like it's not really like I like Shotzi's spot. First off, I don't want to get that twisted. I thought that was an amazing spot. I just don't like how like it gets more amped up by fans just because it's MC using it. But by the way, that was actually a spot that in Search and Destroy tournaments at the beginning of the year, people were using when Gava 2 was a Search and Destroy map. So that spot's actually been known since literally day one of the game. It's just not a lot of people use it because it's not very good for peeking out. Like if you don't have control of the site, you obviously have to peek out deeper on the ring to get more engagement off that. So it's not very good. And also it's not like he's in a wall or anything. He's actually standing on the grate there. And all you can see his head, and so with the automaton, it's obviously there's a big headshot multiplier. You 3-bullet when you hit the head, so it's really not that OP of a spot. It just looks at it from his POV because it looks like he's it's like all you can see is his cap, but when from the other point of view, it's really not that bad. So yeah, that spot's not GA'd. Was okayed by players. It's really not that big of a deal, but fans made it seem out like this is like unbelievable. He's breaking the game. How did he do this? Why is he in a wall? I saw all sort of stuff I was just kind of laughing about because it's like it seems like fans blow stuff way out of proportion compared to how like people within the league see it. Yeah, that's just like my 2 cents on it. Yeah, so I don't even know if it will get fixed. I saw the Tuscan spot I think got fixed, and then maybe the Gavatu spot. I think they said the Big Rock, which isn't that. I don't know what one they're alluding to there, but either way, yeah, it is what it is. I don't think MC really doesn't care anymore. He's just like, it's one of those things where like, if he's on your team, you love him, but if he's not on your team, you hate him because he's literally the hardest kill in the game. But what I like is fans assume everything's GA'd, like all this stuff's GA'd, and in reality, none of it is, and so people like react really harshly to it. And yeah, at the end of the day, like, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. So that's just my 2 cents on it. So yeah, fans will react how they do. At the end of the day, I mean, honestly, my opinion when I hear stuff is just like block it out. I mean, it really doesn't matter. Just shut them up with your gameplay, not with words. So that's just my 2 cents in all of it, I guess.
My opinion on like unintended line of sights, I dislike them, obviously, but if they're in the game, I've always thought you can use them until they're patched out. Do you guys remember in Advanced Warfare on Atlas? Was it Detroit? You could like go up in those little spots around the map, like you could like jump up into a corner of a room.
Oh yeah. It's
like that. I actually find quite cool in the game if they're not so ratty. So in my opinion, I think you could be able to use like any mechanic, any line of sight if it's in the game, and if it gets ruled out or like removed, that's how it should be.
Well, that's what I like. I like the nerdiness of it. Like I like when Shotzi pulled out that corner. I hadn't seen that corner before. And of course, you've seen another team try it. Like Hook tried to use it literally the day after, and Vivid checked it. He opened up the window down below and jumped out and just like shot him in the feet. But I like that nerdiness of it. I like that like he does a lot of stuff like that, like the Bocage jump up into the windows. My thing is there are G8 spots like on Bocage P1. The walls of the play box of P1 hardpoint extends a little bit too far. So when you're on dirt street, you can contest even though you're not on the hill. So like stuff like that's G8, but not stuff like that. Like jump up stuff like that, which is I think that's what the misconception was. Is people think a lot of this stuff's G8 when it really isn't. But yeah, like that's my opinion as well. Like if jump ups in different lines of sight, different like I don't want to like to call them pixel walks, but different stuff like that. I think that's okay because usually when a player pulls that out, like the illy bomb check on Gunrunner or the Shotzzy spot on Berlin when he pulled out against us. I think that stuff's wicked nerdy. It means you put in the hours trying to find even the smallest advantage. I think that's cool. I think that shows a lot of like dedication, hard work.
You don't want to discourage it, you know.
Yeah, but the second you use most of those spots, it gets checked. It becomes a common spot, and it gets checked a lot. So it just loses all power. It's usually more of the first time it gets used. People are like, "Holy, this is amazing!" And then it usually gets found out after that. Which, yeah, it happens. But that's just my take on most of that.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think as soon as it gets used, people will keep that in mind. And so, regardless of how nerdy a spot is, it can always be countered by just the knowledge and like actually checking. So, that's always been my opinion. Is that when GAs really came in was Black Ops 4 when it became like a really big deal. GAs.
Yeah, probably a few before that, but yeah.
Like to put it in perspective too, is like I love how Shotzzy does this. I've seen him do like 4 or 5 things I've never seen any other player do. But like no one hates on him for doing that. They praise it for the creativity and the work ethic to find that, right? That's just where I don't like
the double standards are immense. And I was actually surprised at well, I wasn't surprised. I knew this was the case, but I was I don't know if you guys noticed or remember this, but there was a clip from when OpTic were playing where Scump was laying down on Desert Siege behind this thing, and he like did a quick swipe left and right. And like obviously it was nowhere near as egregious as some of the other ones we've seen back and forth. And people were saying that like, oh, he was probably just checking to see if he was prone blocked or this type of stuff. But like I guarantee, and like the defense in the comments was crazy, and they were saying like, oh wow, like Rab, you're pushing this like false narrative that Scump's using this. I was just showing the clip and saying that saying that if we're going to call someone out for using it, we also need to talk about this clip, and then. That I just know for a fact that if it was Selim in that spot, then people would have very much not taken the opinion that he was just checking if he was prone blocked, right? Which, it's just how it works at the end of the day.
It's how it's going to be.
You just got to like see it for what it is,
Yeah. Like that's the thing is like, obviously I see it differently. I like when people do that. Like for instance, Desert Siege, Shotzzy has this window jump, which like he like breaks the window somehow without it making a sound. And that's how he gets up into the second story without people seeing it. And I think that's like really cool. Like obviously people can hate that, like that, whatever. I think that's cool because he found a way to get into that. Same thing with Bocage with the jump up. He's able to jump and open the shutters and then get in. Or his spot on Tuscan. There's a bunch. And I actually like that because he puts in so many hours just finding this stuff. I like that a lot. Obviously I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. The double standards though is I just think it's funny like when I see like certain stuff that gets punished by fans and some that don't. But at the end of the day, it's really like that's how all sports are. That's literally how all sports are. We're getting more and more fans. I think this year the scene is growing a little bit. People are gonna like love to talk. Fans love to comment. I think that's what makes our game great. It is what it is. Honestly, we're getting to the day and age where athletes or whatever players will have to start blocking out the media buzz and start like worrying about teams. So we're just getting more into the professional sports area where people are always going to be talking, people are always going to be it is what it is with sports. So I honestly it is what it is.
Also with Call of Duty, because there's a new game every single year, there will always be these
Always,
massive learning curves where these things that are easily exploited. So especially when you've got Call of Duty, such a big company that has these really massive games, but then churning them out every year, there's going to be like small mistakes along the way. And when those are in the game, it's actually quite entertaining. So that's how I've enjoyed COD the last few years, is those players exposing those strange inconsistencies in the game, and actually using them for their own benefit.
And let's be real, like if a spot is too OP or like too bad, it will get discussed with the players and they'll block that out. That has not happened. That's not a thing. So that's why, like, if there is a spot that is too bad or too exploitive, it will get GA'd. You won't see it. That's the type of thing. But with everything so far this year, that isn't the case. So that's why it's tough, because obviously, like being within the league, you know certain stuff, and then seeing the reactions from fans, sometimes it's like complete opposite, and it's just kind of funny seeing like the the different reactions from both sides, you know.
Let's move onwards. Toronto, they obviously played you guys this week. They had a very tough week. I don't know like exactly what's going on with Toronto right now, because they seem to be falling apart a little bit. And I can't lie. What did your boys say before the stage 1 major, right? I mean, okay, I don't know if this prediction is going to come true for the whole year, but I did say, and some people said I was a plonker, that London were going to prove they're the better team than Toronto, and they're going to stay that way for the rest of the year. Right now, it looks we're on the money for now. Things may change, but still, it's interesting because their hardpoint has been atrocious. I don't actually know if Turtle can back this up, but I think I heard they're 6-14. I could just look on breakingpoint.gg/team stats, but I'm just going to make up the number. But it's something like that, because obviously it was tragic at the major, and since then it hasn't been great either. So it's something along those lines. And the thing is, last year they wouldn't be that great at hardpoint. They wouldn't be that bad, but they would be very good 2-3-5. Okay, 6-12 right now. So along those lines, most certainly. Okay, I think it was 6-12 before this week. So now 6-14, or before that series against FaZe.
Yeah,
so
because that one isn't in yet.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. So yeah. The thing is, though, that last year they were 12 of the last 14 losses in hardpoint. That is tragic. And also, last year, they might do this for a little bit. Struggling hardpoint, decent in controls, get through them, but they'd always win their game 5s. And this year, they can't win a game 5. They lose 2 game 5s this week to Boston and FaZe. Cammy played great this week. Obviously, Clinics had COVID and was a bit under the weather, but in fairness, he still played pretty well. So I don't really think you can necessarily look at that and say, well, if Clinics is okay, then they win, because I'm not sure they do. And just to me, they look like it. It's really interesting, because I feel like them and Boston have swapped places after this series, that now it's kind of Toronto that are the top 5 gatekeeper, as in if you beat Toronto, you're going to be there and thereabouts to compete with the best of the best. But I don't think they themselves are there right now, which is honestly kind of what I predicted. I think I said in that episode that London was going to be top 4 all year and Toronto was going to be top 6 for the rest of the year. And I just don't know if this team can actually get back to the top. I know they work really hard, but I just don't know if this team actually works that well in this game. I think they were just better at Cold War. That's watching them play. That's my theory. Know what you think, Lion?
All right, I'm muted again.
It's all good.
This week, like, they could have won both series. If they had won the Bocage hardpoint against Breach, they win that series 3-0. They lost that Bocage by 3 points.
It's a fair point.
Then against FaZe, they should have won in 4 and then choked the hardpoint and then got bodied in the game 5. So it seems like they can put themselves in a position to win an awful lot. They have a really hard time finishing series. And that was always last year. That was the opposite. Last year, they would be out of a series and find a way to win. This year, they're in a series and find a way to lose. And I don't know how that happened. Chemistry shouldn't really be an issue, but at this point, maybe that's starting to come into play because they haven't been super consistent this year. I agree with you, Rab. I think last year the players were probably just a lot more comfortable in a slower game where they could be more methodical and work more as a team than in this game. I don't know what you think, Austin.
Yeah, this game doesn't take less thinking, but it doesn't require as much teamwork. Like, the way I like to think about some of these games is some of it allows star players to have more of an impact. Whereas last year, I think a lot of the team, like you think about Control was a lot more strategic once the ticks came in, which could happen again this year. Hardpoint was the spawns were a lot better, so you would be punished for not doing the correct fundamentals on the map, right? And that's something where this year you can kind of get away with it if a player sneaks by another player, which obviously I don't like, but it does take away what Toronto was kind of good at last year, which was fundamentals, teamwork. And I think not a lot of people have said this, but I think a lot of the maps actually hurt them because when I think of Toronto S&D last year, they just kept you guessing constantly. You couldn't read them. They were just all over the map. They were making plays. Raid, Moscow, just allowed them to rotate back and forth, play their odds, play for picks. Maps this year aren't really playing that way. You don't really have that. I mean, you could do it on Berlin, but Siege is more central based. Like you gotta take more map control in that. Bocage is a little bit weird, even though they did beat us. There was a lot of close rounds. That map could actually work for them a little bit better, but Tuscan is more straightforward. You just go to a bomb site. You battle it out there, which I think it hurts their playstyle. It hurts like what they're liking to do. Control is obviously a little bit weird this year, but the hard point thing, if they can get to 50-50, they'll be a lot better. That's what they were at last year. They were a 500 level team in hard point. They weren't great. They weren't bad. They just won half their hard points. They were really great at the other two modes. This year, they're 50-50 in hard or S&D, and they're 33% win percentage. Actually, probably worse in hard point, which isn't going to cut it. They have to improve in both modes, I think. One thing that I do kind of expect is, like, I don't know, like I expected their ARs to be a lot better in this game. Right now in stage 2, Cammy has a 0.89 and Insight has a 1.0 or 1.02, which is not anywhere close to the levels we were seeing them last year. I think Bance and Kleenex are kind of at the same levels as last year, and then you're just not getting as much out of your ARs, which is kind of hurting them. Which I think it's really weird. I feel like all the slower ARs are kind of struggling in this game. I don't know why that is. I would have to like go deep dive into that more, but I don't want to like call anyone out, but like some of the slower ARs are struggling to find as much impact as they did last year, because I think like the Krieg last year, the spawns, because you can hang on to spawns a lot easier last year. So I feel like there was a lot more impact there. Whereas this year they're kind of struggling, and you're really not getting as much out of Cammy. So I just wonder, maybe a role switch. Maybe they can tweak around how they're playing some maps. Like right now, when I look at their hardpoint data, they're holding 66% of the time. They're only rotating 45% of the time. They're not that rotational heavy. They're breaking more. They're breaking 55% of hills, and they break 30% of it, but their holds are not great, and that's what they need to get better at. That's what they were great at last year, was holding, and that's where you're really not seeing that in this stage in specific. So they're not rotating, not holding. They're trying to do more of a London style game, and I don't know if that best suits them. I don't know if you agree with that.
I don't know where the clutch factor's gone, to be honest. I mean, they used to have it. Insight still has it in search, but yeah, Cammy's not quite that. I mean, people have said it in the chat, not quite the player that he was last year, which does surprise me quite a lot, actually, you got to say, because he seems to be the perfect type of player last year to be that. He was basically like very similar to Dashi last year, right? In terms of the way he played, the way he fit into his team. You'd have thought he would have been playing at that type of level, and who knows, this year's Dashies are mainly are. I don't know what they'll think about there, because if they don't feel like their roster can once again compete for championships, they might have to think about something. But yeah, look, we're going to move on because there's plenty of teams still to discuss here, and we've got plenty of storylines to talk about. But we do have to talk Boston, just because it's a great point. People were saying that last year Methods has always kind of been considered, oh, this guy's an iron boots or whatever. But last year he was quite clear that he played, I think if anything, he was saying he played slightly too fast for the way they were playing last year on the Toronto team before he was benched. Interesting strategy from Boston. I'll just mention real quick that Cammy so far this season has a 0.75 in search. Kinix has a 0.62, which is not going to cut it in stage 2 so far. So it's not going to cut it. I mean, it's just nowhere near what we saw last year for the two I would consider the star players of their team, to be perfectly honest. But like on the Boston side, 2-0. As I say, I feel like they've kind of swapped places with Toronto in my expectations. They beat Minnesota, 3-0'd them. They beat Toronto game 5. The whole team is playing well, which is just great. I mean, it's not just Methods playing at a fast pace, but dropping crazy numbers. It's Nero has really turned a corner. Capsule has become slightly more consistent. Their control on Gavutu especially is still very suspect. But if they can figure that out, then they become even scarier than they are. I mean, they've got the clutch factor, they've got the slaying. TJ's been pretty great, still inconsistent as you might expect, but probably getting less so over time. So, not really a team you want. Like, every time I see this rosters playing a series, I kind of reserve confidence, but I should be giving them more credit, I think, now, based on their performances, Lion.
Yeah, I'm really surprised by Zin and TJ, like especially in that Rocker series. The fact that Zin went 25-7 and had the most kills in the lobby is insane. But for that series, TJ had the most kills for the series by a lot, by 12 over Zin, and had a 1.37. They bodied Rocker. But yeah, I'm just really liking watching them play this year because, as we mentioned, the Toronto series as well, that was a series that they probably should have lost, but managed to find a way to win, and that's really encouraging. And if we look at their stats for that series, they were all positive apart from Tej. Like everyone had like a 1.1, 1.2. So they're just looking solid. I don't know what you think, Austin.
Yeah, I want to highlight two players right off the bat. Capsule and Zinni. Like those guys are putting up MVP numbers on this team. Right now, I'll run through Capsule. Capsule has a 1.25 for stage 2. He has a 1.42 in hardpoint, a 1.6 in S&D. Zinni has a 1.28 overall for stage 2. He has a 1.34 in hardpoint and a 1.72 in S&D. Like God, like they're doing amazing. You have I think Nero's playing the role perfectly of entry fragger for this team. He's not lighting it up, but he's like he has these random maps where he just like star potential, right? He just has to find that consistency. Same thing with TJ. Keep working on the consistency, but these two guys are playing their roles perfectly, and that's what's allowing everyone to play really, really well. Like one thing, Tej is leading the team in control KD with 1.18. Like and Neuro has been putting in great engagement stats across the board. So these guys are like doing way better than expectations. They're 14-8 so far during the CDL season in hardpoint, 10-7 in S&D. It's just control. They're 3-9 in control. Their control looks horrible. I won't sugarcoat it. Like they're 1-6 on Gavutu. If they can stop playing that map and just play Tuscan, they'll be a lot better off. But overall, like these guys are performing way better than I think everyone's expectations. I think you're right. I think like these guys are probably top 5, and the 5th best team.
Yeah, I would say top 5 at least.
And that is something I did not expect going into the year. Building a roster after all the 11 teams already did. And I think they got a great group of guys. They're going to keep growing because again, they have 2 rookies on their team. They have Zinni and TJ, who is probably contributing a lot to them. They have Zed and Dens, who are a terrific coaching duo, providing a lot for them. They're only going to get better. I actually just did like a quick little interview, the 1 versus 100 with Capsule, and like got to talk to him a little bit. And these guys are pretty young. They just moved to Boston for the first time they've ever moved. Like they moved out of their homes into another location. So they got to get comfortable. They're going to get comfortable. They're going to keep growing as a team, get better. So that's what's kind of scary is they're performing really, really good already, and I just want to see how they kind of get better in the future and keep growing.
They remind me go on, Lion, before I say what I was going to say.
Did you touch on TJ on the AR?
Yeah, a lot better than I expected. Is that what you were going to say? A lot better than I expected. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Gives me like a good feeling about if Attach moved to the AR. I want to see him on the AR bad. It's proven for TJ, who is a less likely player to play well on it. Anyway, what were you going to say, Rab?
No, but you're exactly right, because I think TJ has been great on that role and kind of that flex position. And it just reminds me, as I was thinking about it more, how similar this team this year reminds me of Toronto last year, where people didn't have that much expectation in the talent and the names on the team. But just the fact that you've got Kleenex and Cammy and these guys that have more talent than maybe people give them credit for, but also are actually very good at their game fives. Like I think their game five record is very icy. And of course, Toronto last year were great in control. Boston aren't, but still, it's obviously not a perfect comparison. But I think that those teams, in the way they're constructed, just Boston to me almost seem like the Toronto of this year. I don't think they'll have the results, but I feel like they're kind of a team that, especially given the way they were formed, I'm also really happy for Zed and Dent that they've been able to get a part of a roster that can actually compete, because especially given the situation they found themselves in. So it's just good to see. We'll see how their progress goes, because I still want to see, I want to be more convinced that they can, like, I want to see them play FaZe and OpTic and give them a close series, you know? If that happens, then I'll be convinced that they're up there.
I will say this, like, they are playing amazing in hardpoint S&D, right? And that's good enough for 5th best in the league. But if they want to win tournaments and beat the best, I think they are doing this as well. They have to really hammer in control. I think any third game mode is honestly the most important game in the series, because if you're up 2-0, it shuts out the other team. If you're tied 1-1, it gives you the advantage going to map 4. If you're down 0-2, it gives you an opportunity to reverse sweep, right? You go look, every single like tournament winner has always been really good at map 3, whatever mode that is. Us in Toronto last year, Florida, when they were winning tournaments, they were that was off the back of Dom. Like, they were winning all their Doms, playing amazing. So if this team wants to keep progressing, they will have to get better at control, because that's how you slam the door shut, right? That's how you bring it back when you need to. You need to find that comfortability in that map. And that's also why OpTic just won a grand finals. They were 2-0 in control against us. They were, very good at control throughout the whole weekend, throughout the whole stage, right? So if they get better at that, they're only going to keep getting, like, moving up the power rankings, So that's something to look out for.
Yeah, that's why they call the third mode a swing mode. It's so, like, it changes momentum. And they don't seem to have that in spades right now, to be able to switch a series mid-series.
And they're still doing good, which is even more impressive. So if they add that to the repertoire, like, instantly they can compete with the top 3,
I mean, that's the thing. Like, they were always giving OpTic such a good go in scrims before the season started, and then they kind of fell off the pace a bit, which is what I expected. I mean, I'll give it to you in a second here, Lion, but it just that's what I expected this team to do, right? Like, teams like this, you would think that they would take a time to get good, whereas they started good, underperformed some people's expectations, and then now they're actually finding their groove, which seems to be the opposite of what Seattle have done. But we'll talk about them in a second. What do you want to say, Lion?
Just to touch on Boston preseason. Remember, preseason was only hardpoint scrims for the most part.
Like, the fair point, actually. Yeah. They are still very good at hardpoint.
If they were doing control preseason, I think we would have found out earlier that they had that weakness. But
maybe they'll be good at Berlin. Who knows if that arrives? So, okay, Seattle. They lose to OpTic. They lose to the LAG series is a bit of a dagger for this team, to be honest. Like, they come off a FaZe victory, and yes, they're not expected to beat OpTic. They put up a fight. They win a map. Like, it was close. OpTic get to clutch up in certain situations. The LAG defeat is just tough. I mean, they were comfortably the second best team in this series. There's no other way to look at it. And I don't know, it's just incredibly tough to say what you do with this roster, because yes, they're 1-2. They've still got a chance to make something happen. I believe they play Thieves, and actually, let me look who else they play next week. They play Thieves, and they play they already played 4 games, or am I absolutely tripping? Yeah, they've already played 4 games. So they were 1-3. No, 1-2. I must be blind. I'm not blind.
Isn't it 1-3?
Yeah, they're 1-3. They lost to Boston as well. Yeah, they're 1-3.
Yeah, they lost to Boston. They lost to,
and then they lost to 2 games this week, and they beat you guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like, they play Thieves to try and go 2-3, and if they can't do that, even then it's going to be tough for them, because I mean, right now they're sitting here at 6-11 map count. So they honestly might be chalked for winners at this point. And if that is the case, and they have a ball performance at Major 2, how do you fix this team? Because Aches might be right. He said to play it up for a while, and, maybe he's on the right lines here. But the thing is, the only player that's been, I don't know what the statistics exactly look like, but accuracy has been great in clutch situations. Outside of that, I'm sure his stats don't look excellent, but his stats aren't meant to look excellent on this team if he can get the other players playing well, which just doesn't happen consistently. Mac was their best player for stage 1, I think, on the whole. And since then, he's kind of come off the boil. Pred and Sib have the occasional fantastic maps, but it's just a weird team. And the problem is that I've mentioned before that if the star players aren't frying, accuracy isn't there to drop a 1.3 like Zero is on London, which is where this team comes into a bit of a struggle. But at the same time, you can't get rid of accuracy unless you bring in someone else with incredible leadership molding potential. I don't really think there's a guy like that out there. So I think they've backed themselves into a bit of a corner, to be honest. I don't know what you think, Austin, because I know you're hot on this team initially, and I think a lot of us were excited about the prospect of them competing for championships. So right now, they don't really seem close to being able to do so again. They did beat you guys though, but
yeah, of course it beat us. I will say, like, it started off. I think in the preseason we were talking about how like the London and Seattle could be a top team, but they will also definitely have their struggles throughout the year, and it's just about how they rebound off of that. I think we're seeing that now. They're obviously struggling. I will say one thing. I'll start off with accuracy. Accuracy actually has not been playing as bad as I feel like it's been kind of gassed because he actually has almost the exact same statistics as Illy. They both have 0.96s. They both have a 72 Slayer rating. They're pretty much their accuracy actually has a better non-traded kill stats than Illy. It's pretty neck and neck there. Like I'm not saying Illy's bad. I'm saying like he's actually not doing as bad as it's been thrown out there. I don't think their problem is really slaying power. Personally, I think they're more crumbling at the end of maps. Like right now, Mac has a 1.01, Pred has a 1.01, and Sib has a 1.07, but it's not consistent. It's like one map will be like a 1.7, the next map will be a 0.7, you know? And you're not really seeing that consistency. I almost want to say like Mac's the best player on this team. Like I think
I kind of feel that watching them, to be honest. He's had a rough stage too, though. I think
he's got a 1.07 in control. He's got a 1.05, which is the team's highest hardpoint KD. The only thing he's struggling on is S&D, where he has a 0.6. If it wasn't for his 0.6, he would actually be have probably the highest KD on the team. Which I don't think this team was built for that. Like looking at the team, you would probably think, you know, Sib and Pred are going to be the highlights. Mac's going to be that gap filler I think Mac does terrific in that role. I feel like he's great. But right now it almost looks like Mac is like the star player of the team. He's been playing phenomenal. I actually love his play. I think he's been doing a great job. I personally, I would not make any roster changes. I think this team, you have two rookies. Mac's still pretty young. I think he's only like 21. He's been in the league for 3 years. I still think accuracy is one of the best leaders in the league. From an IGL point, from just a person point. You got obviously our guy Brandon, our Sam, like both of them, Sam Phoenix, Brandon Novus, both of those guys. You have a great S&D analyst and Equip. I feel like you just got to give this time to grow. I feel like there's growing pains that are currently happening, which show the inconsistencies. And if they, again, they're not here to win stage 2. They're not here to win stage 3. It's all about the end of the year. Obviously, they would like to do a lot better than what they're currently doing, but obviously, it's also a lot easier to learn from losses than it is from wins. So maybe at the kickoff, they kind of were trying to ride that high, and now in stage 1 and stage 2, they're losing, and the momentum's all gone. They're kind of overthinking things. They're really inconsistent. Maybe they can pick up from a lot of these losses and kind of break down, you know, do the autopsy of why you're doing so, like losing these series, and then come back stronger. That's just my thing. You know, a lot of people are a little bit negative. I don't know how you guys feel. Like, I wouldn't make any roster changes personally. Would you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this week they always come out hot. They won the Bocage against OpTic, and then lost the next 3 maps. But I actually thought they played quite well this series. Tuscan, I was surprised that they pushed that to round 5, and it was actually a close map. And OpTic had to win the offense. They just lost defense. So OpTic actually had defense because they kind of choked that round 4 and gave them defense. And then the Tuscan last map, 240 to 250, was a close map as well. So they ran OpTic quite close, but they couldn't keep the momentum from map 1. And then they also played that LAG series where they dominated map 1 and then again lost the next 3. I don't know. I think if they could just get better at S&D, like a map 2 S&D, then they're going to have so much momentum later on in a series, and they won't have to rely on pushing it far into the series. So I think, yeah, I don't know how you'd change this team. I think there would only be one player you could change accuracy with that has the same level of knowledge in the game and maybe a little bit more prowess on the map, and that would be Crim when he's playing at his best.
Damn, Crim. I didn't think you were going to say Crim, but fair enough.
Yeah, but when you think about it, accuracy, knowledge-wise, and we've talked about this a lot.
You're going to say Clay. You're not bullish on Clay.
I personally think accuracy is playing a lot better than Clay was. I don't know.
Well, I agree. I do agree. And I don't, but Clay and Mac, the duo kind of worked.
I mean, Clay could also fit on that team because the rest of that team is so aggressive that maybe having an aggressive main might actually work, but I don't know about that. But yeah, I think accuracy this year has also been extremely underrated. And I think it's because he has those maps where he drops like 7 and 28, and then everyone just runs with it like he's just terrible. But then he'll come back and go like 30 and 30 in the next map, and everyone will just forget that he actually played decent. So yeah, I think he's honestly doing better than everyone thinks this year.
It's just a matter of like getting the best out of those players though, because I don't know if you agree with this, but often I see, and I know maybe Sib is just like this as a player, but often I look at his like player cam, and I'm pretty sure I forget what it was, but there was one situation, I don't know if it was Search or something, he literally made a play, no, it was Hardpoint, he was breaking into Tuscan, like the final hill, I think, and he was making a play, he went through the door, he goes up the stairs, and I don't know if maybe the camera was delayed from what we actually saw, from what was on his screen, which might have been the case. But even then, I was looking at his cam the whole time. He was making a play through the bottom, came up behind, shot like 2 people in the back, got a kill. His face didn't move. He didn't say a word. Nothing happened. I'm like, you've got to, like, surely you're calling this out. Surely you're saying, lads, I'm hitting bottom. I'm going to get this flank. Maybe his camera was frozen or it was delayed. But I'm just saying that, like, whenever I see Sib, he seems either, I don't know. I know he's got passion, but I just don't think they're getting the best out of him somehow. It feels like there's much more that can be had from this player, either in comms or in something. It just feels like we're not seeing the full potential of Sib on the map that we could be seeing. And if accuracy isn't the right guy to get that out of him, then maybe there's you'd consider something there. That's all I'm going to say.
That's the most difficult thing to do too. And like literally, when I think of people that want to motivate me, I would literally hire Sam Phoenix to be my guy that sits on my couch next to me screaming at me all day to do better. So like that's why it's tough, because I think Sam and Lamar should be perfect at that. The thing that is a little bit concerning for me is when you think of accuracy of run teams, hardpoint has always been an issue, but they've also been really fundamentally well in hardpoint. Like Minnesota last year didn't win the most hardpoints, but like fundamentally you knew what you were getting out of them. They're 6 and 11 again this year. They're 0-3 in Gavutu. They're 2-4 on Bocage, and they're 1-2 on Berlin. That has to get better. And I just really think that's the mode you got to pinpoint and get better at. Like they're 7-7 in S&D. They're 4-6 in well, actually this isn't updated. I think they have one map missing out of this. They're 4-6 in control. But I still think like if they can improve their hardpoint, they get so much better. I just think they find themselves in holes because they aren't winning the control, and then they lose that map 4 hardpoint, and then it's just chalked. It's either you lost a series or you're chalked going into map 5. And that's something, if they can just improve on that, get more fundamentally correct, start playing a little bit better in hardpoint, and you know, it is hard getting a lot out of your young players. That is the most difficult thing when you come into the league. That's what I like Denz and Zed are doing a great job of that with Neuro and with Capsule. So it's a process. Personally, again, I would not change anything. I would let these guys grow. This is the moments that define your season. When you're in the shitter and you got to get better. This is when you got to pull through or get out. Like that's the thing. Like that's where you see it's like make or break for these guys. So they'll get. I have a little bit more faith because I have faith in that coaching staff. I have faith in Lamar. These guys are crazy talented. All three, like Mac, Pred, and Sib are crazy talented. It's about putting it together and being consistent. It doesn't matter if you can win one series. It matters if you can put that together for a tournament run. So that's something to look forward to for them.
Okay, we've done Seattle. We've got to talk Thieves because they only played one series this week, but it was an incredibly crucial one. They lost to Minnesota. They got reverse swept again. They got reverse swept against FaZe. Happens again here. The full collapse. The ice is gone. Ice out the window. They're 0-3 now this stage with a 4-9 map count. They play LAG and Seattle next week. They need to win both if they want to get to winners. And even if they win, but not particularly comfortably, like let's say they go 3-2, 3-2, their map count will be 10-13 at a 2-3 record, which probably won't be good enough. So they need to win and do so relatively comfortably to qualify for winners. If they get losers, which seems more and more likely at the moment, and they have a poor major, let's say top 8, even top 12, top 6, I don't care. They're here to win. We've just seen what 100 Thieves have done with their Valorant move, or their Valorant team. If it's not working, they blow it up. They pay money, they bring in big players. They've just brought in DDK, Sean Gares, coaching staff, Mike's HD as well. Like, they make big moves to try and win. Nadeshot said on stream, like, a week ago, when they failed to qualify for the Valorant, like the playoffs or whatever it is, that he doesn't care about anything but winning. He wants to winning before all else. And I'm sure he considers that with this team as well. If this team does not have the potential to win championships, and when I've talked to Draza, Kenny, all that they said to me going into the season was that they want to be there every championship Sunday to give themselves a chance to win. And if they're there every championship Sunday, they'll be happy. Didn't make it stage 1. Doesn't look like they're going to make it stage 2. So the question is there. This team will make a change. It will happen. They are an organization that will do it. Question is, what move do you make? The going suggestion is you get rid of Octane. He hasn't been particularly great. You put Kenny on a main. You put Draza on a flex. And you bring in another sub. That's been the main talking point I've seen the last 24 hours. And, well, I'll throw it to you, Lion, because your eyes kind of lit up because I was, dropping Octane. What's going on here? But I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him.
Weird, because I'm looking at their stats right now, and the highest KD they have for this stage is a 0.91 with Envoy.
Really? Of course. I guess that makes sense across the 3 games. That's tragic, though.
FaZe with a 0.67 and only 18 kills per 10 minutes in hardpoint is ridiculous. I don't know, man, because last year we gave LA Thieves a lot of shit for being a team that will make a change way too quick, and then the team just gets even worse, or it doesn't improve at all. So I think this year what they might try and do is stick it out with this really talented squad and just try and connect the pieces to get it to work. Saying that you can't also drop a 0.67 across a whole stage, that's just atrocious. But I don't know what you think, Austin, because with this team, I'm so confused because they looked so good at hardpoint or just respawn in general at the start of the year, but now it's gotten to a point where even their respawn is like not good at all. No one has over a 1 KD. No one has over a 0.92 KD in hardpoint now, which is ridiculous. They're better at S&D stat-wise than they are at respawn. What do you think, Austin?
Wait, are you so for the stats for this stage, I have Envoy with a 0.96 with like including the last series. And Draza has a 0.73. So like right now when I look at weaknesses on the team, honestly, Draza's not been killing it this stage. And then you go look at S&D and Kenny has a 0.56. Like when's the last time we saw Kenny with a 0.56 in S&D? And then you go into control and Draza has a 0.54. Like it just seems like there's no consistent mode for this team. And then I hate doing this, but like I will never really critique teams on vetoes because I don't know what their practice is. I don't know what they've like anti-stratted on other teams. But Tuscan used to be their best map. No, Tuscan Hardpoint. Like they beat us on it.
Me too, but yeah, Tuscan Hardpoint, they were really good.
I always thought that the Gavutu was way overheated. I always thought Berlin was way better than their Gavutu. That's why like we played them on it. I thought their Berlin and Tuscan were amazing. And that's why you got a lot of teams playing on the Gavutu because they would either get one of those. But they were 4-1 going into that last series versus Minnesota on Tuscan. They vetoed Tuscan to play Bocage. Which I thought was really weird on that map 4. I was like, wouldn't you want to be playing
they played that
Tuscan? Especially against a team like Minnesota that has actually struggled on Tuscan. I believe they're winless on Tuscan. Let me actually look real quick because I'm pretty sure they are. I'm pretty sure they're 0-3.
I find when teams
0-5
while you're looking. Yeah. Bocage, it seems like a map that teams will pick just because they're bad at hardpoint and they need to find a map win, and you can just eke one out on that map. And so
make it chaotic.
A bad hardpoint team is a really strange decision.
Yeah, they were 0-5 on Tuscan, and I was like, and maybe because I don't know their map records. Maybe they've getting steamrolled in Tuscan on scrims, and they just said get it out, right? Or maybe they saw something. Maybe they've played scrimmed Minnesota a couple times, and they've been steamrolling them on Bocage. That's why I hate doing this. But like, that was something that just caught my eye, and I was just like, that is very weird because that could have won them the series, right? And I like them on Tuscan. I do. I think Envoy is a terrific flanker who decides when he wants to take a long route, short route, hit the hill. I feel like he's great at that. Traditionally, I thought that was Draza's best map. I thought Octane was doing pretty well with the field and the lanes there. I don't know. I thought that was just questionable, but at the end of the day, what was propelling this team was their hard point, and they have always struggled at S&D. I feel like yes, they have a good S&D player in Envoy, but for the rest of them, I didn't know how strong they were in S&D. Octane's always been a little bit weaker. Kenny has his moments where he's a big good clutcher, but sometimes like all these guys can struggle. 6-11 in S&D is not going to cut it, especially when your hard point isn't an instant win anymore. That's just my thing. But it's still LA Thieves. It's gonna hurt if they start losers bracket, but I don't know. Like maybe Draza to a flex. He was really good on the AR last year, or maybe another
Kenny on
sub
a
coming
sub?
in. Yeah, the thing is Kenny just hates being on a sub, and he's traditionally
I'd put
always
him on the main, man. Look what New
yeah.
York just did. That's all I'm
It's
going to
really
say.
tough. It's a tough call because I feel like isn't Octane like wasn't that his their prized acquisition
Well,
like in the
exactly,
off
yeah.
season like
But sometimes the
it's
game
such a
just
tough
doesn't
spot.
suit it, you know? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I just look at the way this game plays, and I'm just looking at the ARs that are the best, and I'm thinking Octane just doesn't really fit in that category, just the way he plays the game. I don't know. I think this team would have worked much better on like a last year type game, to be honest. But Octane's been I think Draza, yes, his stats this stage aren't great. Kenny, his stats this stage aren't great. But over the course of the year and when they were good, they were the player. Like, I don't think you really want to get rid of those players. I know that Kenny and Draza have a good relationship. I think that Draza has a lot of potential. People are quick to say get rid of him, but I think to me the most underwhelming player has been Octane in terms of his role, what he was meant to do. Even when the team was winning, he wasn't particularly good. So it wasn't like dropping crazy numbers when they were winning. It was the rest of the guys doing the work, which makes me think that like he's either not particularly comfortable on this game, and Enable said on the reverse sweep that he goes to the compound, right? And he reckons that their vibes in and like the kind of atmosphere in their practice room has 180'd since before the season when they were super confident. Now it's like he doesn't feel like they're having fun when they practice, which is quite a big statement. Because if that's the case, then he even said that he doesn't reckon a one-person change is enough. He said that he reckons they might need a two-person change to completely change the culture, which is like as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, well, this team is not
Not
far
good.
from exploding.
That's not what you want to hear a 100 Thieves person say.
Well, exactly right. It's like, oh my god, this guy's in the compound and he's just leaking the team's collapsing internally. So, look, I don't. Even if a one-person change is enough, I feel like Kenny to a main is probably the thing to try. The thing is though, when LA Thieves do this, and let's say they do bench Octane or something, and they decide to bring in an SMG, they don't just bring in like a challengers kid or pentagram from the bench. They bring in like an SMG, you know, like they make a move, they make a hook move, they make a
Neptune.
move for like, yeah, someone like that, right? I don't know what the situation is on New York, like what Hydra's contract looks like. I don't know what Vivid's contract looks like over at Florida, but like, you know, I
Kleenex.
feel like even a Kleenex, right? I think that if they're gonna make a move like this, they will make a big move. They'll pay money to get someone from one of the teams that's struggling, and they'll bring them onto Thieves. Like that's just how they operate, I think, which creates a very exciting potential after Stage 2 Major. What do you think, Lion?
They bring Donnie Temp back.
Oh no! There's no way they want to do that. It might work though, but like, it might actually work.
Change the vibes for sure.
Kenny wanted to team with him a lot before last season.
Yeah, well, I guess it's changed. Yeah, I think. Oh man, if you're gonna make a change with this team, I think making a two-person change is gonna completely change the lineup, and that's what they did last year a lot. Was double changes.
Keep Kenny and Envoy, and then
hoping, but I don't know if I agree with that. I have really no opinion on this team because I can't imagine a more, other than maybe mixing Draza out, I don't know, but I can't imagine a more like stacked lineup on paper, like the players that are out there. So to see them underperforming, it just doesn't really add up. And I would say like making a change is only going to hurt them in the short term because it's proven in the past to do so.
Minus Octane, minus Draza, plus Havok, plus Kismet.
Yeah, but the thing with Havok with that is I don't know. I feel like they have a Havok on their team. Like Envoy is like at smart route taking.
I'm just joking.
No. I know, but I see it a lot in the chat too. Like I see Havok, but man, I just feel like you're in a tough spot over there because like that team is like a team that like demands excellence in every sport, and if you aren't cutting it, usually pretty quick.
I like Red Bull Racing.
Yeah, literally. I wish they would maybe get Cap some help, like another assistant coach in there to help, maybe an S&D analyst because I feel like they really need it. I don't know. I feel like there are SMGs that fit. It's just I don't think other teams are gonna let go of their SMGs. Like Kleenex is a perfect entry fragger, like SMG would fit right in there. I've been saying ASUM. I think I said this in the preseason. ASUM would be a terrific entry fragger to throw in there. He's a great comms guy, vibe guy, Vivid maybe. But like none of these teams are just gonna be like, yes, we have a great comment, like great entry fragger. Yeah, we'll just give them to you. Like that's usually one of the harder roles to fill. I don't think that's gonna really happen. So I don't know. It's going to be a really tough situation for them. Obviously, when you have two different roles for two different players struggling, maybe they do a role swap. Maybe they bring in some help for Cap. I don't know. But also, it's very weird. You go from a complete 180. Like you were a dominant hardpoint team competing. Like people were saying you're in the top 3, and then now. Yeah. If it's that much of a roller coaster, like maybe they can turn it around. Maybe it takes like one big win. Because if you do think about it, they got reverse swept by us. They got reverse swept, I think, in their first match of this stage. They got reverse swept by Minnesota, by Texas, right? Did they get?
It wasn't a reverse sweep, but it was. Yeah, it wasn't a reverse sweep because the OpTic won the first.
Oh, they choked. Yeah, they choked the map 5.
The map 5,
it was 5-4, and they should have definitely won that. So like I can see why those keep dinging at the armor, and now you're just like upset, not having a good time. Like I'm straight up not having a good time. Like so like I can see why that. I can see like maybe like 1 or 2 big victories kind of pulls it around and then they're back to form. But it's definitely a tough spot because it's not a team that's just gonna bring in somebody to like fill the gap. They're gonna want to win, you know. So it's a tough spot for them to be in.
Let's do OpTic. They go 2-0. The Seattle series, as we said, was far from convincing. The Florida one was impressive, I thought. And again, I think that OpTic, the series they've won here so far, have very much been kind of the best case scenario for them in the sense they haven't been playing their best. They know they've been sloppy. They know that there's things to improve on. I think these are series victories where you're not going to get complacent after victories like this, which has certainly been some of the bane of OpTic in the past when they get a good series win and they get a bit too, full of themselves. And we know what Austin said that, FaZe is not slacking off, right? They're putting in obscene amounts of time, I'm sure. But these are the kind of victories where you've got a lot to improve on and aren't going to slack off. And they know that map pool is their focus. And I'm sure they'll take that into the final 2 games they play this week. Haven't now gone 3-0 and locked up their winners bracket spots. But, I did want to say that there's a few maps that this OpTic team has won that there's no way last year's OpTic would have won. Like a couple of games against Seattle, the clutch factor. I mean, it was the control map 5 against Florida, where I'm almost certain last year's OpTic did not win that game. Like they just loved throwing away advantages into situations where they were on the verge of losing and then they would lose. Whereas this year, it's a different story, which is very impressive because that's something that you need if you want to win championships on a consistent basis. Is that kind of, it's not just the clutch factor, but it's also kind of the ability and the confidence in your teammates to believe that you can win in those moments. I feel like what happened with OpTic Chicago last year is that they had a few daggers, right, where they lost, a moment they should have won. And then it gets in their head the next time they're in a moment like that. And then they, if you start to believe that you're a team that doesn't clutch up, you won't clutch up. If you start to believe you're a team that clutches up, you know what happens, right? It's often a mindset thing. And this type of stuff will help a lot for that. They're now also on a 10-win streak, Austin, which means that they're coming for your guys' record, which was 13 last year. You set a record of 13 series in a row, which is not bad at all. In order for OpTic to beat that, they will have to go through you guys. And then have a decent little, run at the major. So quite an exciting situation. I think that it's if you're an OpTic fan, you're happy with where the team is at the moment.
Oh yeah, I'd be very happy. Lion, how happy are you?
Oh, it's completely changed the trajectory of Call of Duty. Like, it's amazing.
maybe I understated that slightly.
The series, like against Florida, because I've kind of touched on the other series already against Seattle. I was surprised like they had Bocage as map 1, because that's a map that Florida always seem to pick, and they love that map, and they're usually really good at it, especially Skies on that map. And they actually won via time, which was pretty crazy. And then
OpTic always do that though. I feel like they're the team. I don't know if Turtle's still in here, but OpTic, I guarantee, have the most by time victories or even by time games on Bocage so far this season.
They like playing that time, a lot of contests. And then they edged out that Tuscan control. But yeah, this week with OpTic and Tuscan control, like during the major, we saw them like dominate that map a little bit more easily. And now they're kind of just pushing it to game 5. And I feel that, do you reckon that's on purpose because they're trying to just play for that defense to secure a win? Or what do you guys reckon?
Oh, what do you think, Austin?
I mean, they're just more of a slower paced defensive team, which allows them to be more posted up for the kill. So they allow some of the free ticks at A, but then they'll always lock down B and make you waste time, right? They're really, really good at that. And then on offense, they are just explosive, which is why they're like I said at the beginning, if you want to win championships, you've got to be good at the third mode. They are, during their 10 map or 10 series win streak, they are 11-0 in control. They are 8-0 on Tuscan and 3-0 on Gav. And like, I don't think they're the best hardpoint team. I don't think they're up there for best in hardpoint and S&D. But what wins them Major 1, what has them on the streak is control. It's just amazing how consistent they are at it. The turnaround from the first 2 series, amazing. That's my 2 things.
Yeah, and I also feel like they've adopted the it's never chalked mentality, and I feel like that might have originated from that weird Gavitu control against you guys, where Cities was lagging and they managed to win their map. I feel like that's where things kind of changed for them, even though that round was a bit sus. And so, yeah, this time last year, they were getting 1v3'd by, what was it, accuracy, round 11. And then this year...
It was stage 2 major, I think that was.
Yeah. And so, like, I think that they've just found this new mindset that they haven't had in years, honestly. It's really cool to see.
Yeah. It's just exciting. It's just exciting because, like, they do well and the league starts getting a lot better. A lot of fans are getting back into it. This team is very smart. You know, Troy and Ray are doing a great job with them. You know, I think Scump was talking about how Dashy's done a complete 180 on the maturity side, mentality side. He's grown a ton. I think that really stems from, you know, Illy is one of his great friends. Illy's a really hard worker. Ant is a really hard worker. They're putting in a lot of hours. They're working hard. They're definitely ahead in a lot of aspects in the game right now, which is, you know, props to them. It's so hard to stay on top, and they have like consistently done that for 10 series in a row. So I actually cannot wait for our series on Sunday. Like, obviously, like, we're more of where OpTic was in stage 1 last stage, like in the qualifying matches where they ended up 3-2. They were a little bit wobbly. We're probably in that one, and then they're where we were with like 5-0, right? So like, yeah, it'll kind of be cool to see like how close our teams are, because obviously they beat us twice. I think the map count was 8-4 at the major, so it will be kind of cool to see how we've kind of both grown in the last 2 weeks and see where we're at.
Beautiful stuff. Before we discuss matches this week, just want to mention, shout out Jack Walker in the chat. Crazy stat actually that OpTic are, let's just say since the start of the stage 1, 18-3 on Tuscan across all game modes, which is quite something. So, like, you can ban them out, but they're pretty good at the other maps as well. So that's certainly a concern.
Bro, they're 17-1 on their 10 series win streak on Tuscan right now. 17-1 across all three
Jesus.
modes.
That's actually mad. Wow. I mean, they look so good at
13-0
that
in
map, like, all the
respawns.
time.
What's the map like? Was it an S&D Tuscan?
Yeah. So they're 5-0 on Hardpoint, 4-1 on S&D, and 8-0 on Control. Tuscan. They're 10 map. Yeah.
Are they just winning these coin tosses, or like the other team's picking Tuscan against them? I mean, they're pretty good at Gav as well. So
yeah, I don't
not
know.
many maps to pick from. So
yeah.
Tuscan.
There is literally, Tuscan is going to be in like every series, to be honest. So that's kind of incredible. Okay, Omar, if you want to bring up the kind of schedule for this week, if you have it, if it's not there, it's okay. But I think did I put it up further on? I don't know. I feel like I did. But oh yeah, the final week schedule. I think that's it right there. Beautiful stuff. Cool. So there's games for this week. I feel like we kind of talked about the importance of a lot of these games. I feel like we should just kind of pick out a couple that are the most interesting. So on Friday we've got Paris, Toronto, LA Thieves, LAG, and FaZe, Florida. To me, the Thieves LAG series is super impactful here because LAG looked good against Seattle, and this is basically like a decider to me whether LA Thieves can possibly continue with this team. If they lose this series, it's chalked, I think. Like, guaranteed. It's kind of like in in stage 1 when OpTic got 0-2 and they played Paris. I was like, if they lose this series, it's chalked. It might not have been, looking back at it. But at the time, there was questions because they hadn't won a series so far this season at that point, OpTic. Since then, obviously, they were 10 in a row, but, didn't really predict that one happening. But yeah, that's the standout of day 1 to me because I think a lot rides on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the FaZe Florida series would be quite interesting because we were really high on
Bocage, baby. Let's get that in there, game 1.
Yeah, we were really high on
I will,
Florida
right?
before. What, you going to actually play Bocage against him?
I mean, we both love Bocage. I mean, unless they veto it, who knows? I could make it way in.
But yeah, the thing I'm excited about that series is that we were high on Florida before they played OpTic. And then FaZe is kind of like the OpTic B right now, the second top 2 S tier team. So I'm excited for that. But the most exciting matchup for me during the week is Florida's second match versus Boston, because I feel like that's kind of like the gatekeeping match for being in that top 4 or 5 kind of range. So I'm getting more high on Florida as the year goes on because their inconsistencies are starting to, I don't know, happen less.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But the matchup I'm most looking forward to is actually between probably my 4 and 5 teams right now, I would think, is Boston and London. I think that's going to be a good battle to see where.
And Sunday is a banger, actually.
Yeah,
Holy.
like literally every matchup on Sunday is actually great because every team at that point will need to win no matter what. But that London Boston is a really nice one going into the major because that could very easily be like a winner's semi, like maybe a loser's final, even a winner's final, if the bracket aligns. But like those two teams, I think are going to make a deep run. It's nice to see like a little bit of a pre-show before the major, But both those teams match up really difficultly. Like I think London has the control advantage, Boston has the S&D advantage, and then they're pretty even in hardpoint. So I want to see, who's gonna knock that one out. I'm excited to watch that one.
Yeah, I think to me this is like, go online.
Sorry, bro, I cut you off every time. Did you see the marquee match for Saturday? It's like genuinely it's the worst match on Saturday.
Wait, is it the last one?
It's Minnesota, New York.
Minnesota? I don't really care about that one. It's Rock Home series, yeah.
You know why that is?
It's an interesting series, actually, but I don't really care.
I think it's because that one will be for the upper bracket spot for Minnesota. Because they're 2-2 right now. They're 7-10 in map count. If they do bad in this, like if they get swept, they could very easily not be at the upper bracket in their own major. I think that's why they did that.
It might make sense. It is an interesting series. Like, I'm looking forward to both New York series, actually, just to see what they're capable of. The Toronto one, especially, I think will be quite. The Toronto one, whether that's interesting, depends on how the Minnesota one goes. But to me, the London-Boston one is like, can London prove that, like, okay, we're the number 3 team, everyone below us is never going to beat us? Like, that's kind of what that's about to me. Which I think they might be capable of doing, actually. But it'll be an exciting one. And even if we have to mention Atlanta FaZe versus OpTic, I guess. But
yeah, that's the obvious one. I'm so excited for that. That Sunday is gonna be nothing but bangers. Yeah.
Wait, so what's next, Rab?
well, we're about to close out the show, but we have one final topic to talk about before we end off. Someone's saying Rab hates us in the chat. Okay, beautiful stuff. Okay, so final question. Most underrated player in the league at the present time. We will go through, give some thoughts on this, because I think there's a lot of players. I think people maybe straight away you think, like Illy or something, but obviously Illy's got a lot of gas, right? So community perception, feel like a lot of the OpTic guys, FaZe guys, they're probably at the point where they're not considered underrated. These are probably players, to me, an underrated player is someone on a team that's actually performing well. Like, if I think of a guy like, I don't know, if I look at, I mean, even if I look at Paris and I say John, like, I don't think maybe he is somewhat underrated in the thing that people seem to think he's absolutely terrible, and he's not actually terrible. But I don't really care about players like that. I'm more interested in teams that are doing well, and there's players on the teams that are way more impactful on the success of that team than they get credit for. So there's some good answers in the chat here. I won't be going first. I will kind of say I have maybe two names. Austin, you're up first.
I think Zenny. Honestly, I think Zenny went from a guy that just kind of filled the lanes in the back, like that lane player, to being. Yeah, I mean, he has a 1.28 KD this stage. That's third highest. He's barely behind Awakening. He's a couple ticks behind Dashy, but he has a 1.28. It's got to be one of the highest. He has the third highest hard point, and I believe he has the highest S&D KD. Yeah, 1.72, highest S&D KD in the league. He's been playing phenomenal. I'll have to give it to him because usually you don't expect him to be putting up superstar numbers, but also he's very capable of it, and that's what he's been doing so far this stage.
Yeah, I agree with that. I probably would have gone for the same, Zenny, but
yeah, I think it's interesting to me because you're right, but I feel like Zenny's been getting a lot of gas the last like 2 weeks. I would say he's almost got enough gas. And people saying it in the chat as well, like people's first instinct was to say methods. And if the first instinct is to say methods, tells me he's not actually underrated because he's getting the credit he deserves. But that's just, it's just my take.
Maybe Dav Patty? Like, I feel like Dav Patty's on this Florida team that's not like the superstar, quote unquote, that the other three are. But he's also doing his role really well, and it's allowing the other players to kind of do their thing. Like, I've seen Skies has a 1.22 this stage, Awakening has a 1.29. Dav Patty's actually done his role then. I guess he doesn't have like the flashy stats, but I believe he's positive he's positive in every single mode. He's doing what needs to be done in the Florida backline. I guess he would be someone that you wouldn't expect to get so much praise, but I kind of like him.
Yeah, I think.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, I agree with Austin both of his takes. I think this year, the players that are on like top teams are all getting gas, like regardless of their stats. So like you can look at players like Nasty. I think he's getting like a lot of gas, but he's got like a 1 KD for the year. But it's because he's on such a good team and he's playing his role so well. So I
only
think
1v4.
Yeah, exactly. It was amazing. I think this year the scene is starting to like grow perspective wise. Like the fans are actually understanding the good players and like giving gas to the correct people as opposed to KD. And I think that at Breaking Point we should take credit for that. Because we're the ones that are pushing the KD narrative so hard that people are ignoring it.
I like that logic. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, you're right though, bro. Like you would say Trey, but Trey gets a lot of gas. I would say like Trey's been that leader for London that's been pushing him up, but he gets a lot of gas. Asim's been getting a lot of gas. I've been seeing a lot of both the rookies on Boston get a lot of gas. Like they've been doing great. It's really weird. Like it's actually been spot on a lot of the gas this year. Usually it's like a little bit like you're missing some of the key players, but I mean, I feel like almost every role player in the league right now is actually getting a lot of gas, which I love. I love it how people are acknowledging like the star role players who are actually enabling their superstar players to play well. And I I love that, honestly.
Yeah,
It's probably
it's hard to
true.
pick an underrated player, in my opinion, right now. But Zin and not Capsital, Dev Patty are probably the two that I would say are the most underrated.
The two that I had in my head, DNA 111 hit the nail on the head. Because I honestly, I know you said Nasty. Yes, he had the 1v4, but I feel like I don't feel like people have talked about Nasty basically at all. Like because he gets overshadowed by every other player on the team. People even forget he's on there. But like when Paulex was in the team instead of Gizmo, Nasty is the guy dropping insane numbers. And I remember, I think it was back at the start of, this is a weird thing that my brain just came up with, but the start of Black Ops 4 when Dashi couldn't make it to the Pro League and Karma had to fill in. And we saw like at the start of the year and for the rest of the year, Dashi was like doing a lot of the slaying. But when Dashi wasn't there and Zuma was there, sorry, did I say Karma to fill in?
It was Zuma, right?
Yeah. Zuma had to fill in. And Zuma filled in. But Karma, like, took over the slaying when Dashi wasn't there. Like he just really turned it on, and it just shows that like what Karma does on the team usually was very impactful to their success. But when he was put into a more slaying role, he could actually take over in that sense. So to me, I think Nasty is probably underrated just because Afro, Zero, and Gizmo all get a lot of gas, and they're a top 3 team in the game, and barely anyone talks about what Nasty does to enable that. The other name that I had, which I think is maybe not so true anymore, just based on because people have been starting to give him a bit of gas, but I would have said certainly this time last week, I would certainly have said that Nero was underrated because the start of the year, and I think that's still the case to a degree, because I think because all the gas is around Capsule, right? Everyone talks about, this is like the way I look at underrated is like a team that's doing well, but one of their players isn't getting the credit they deserve. Even maybe TJ goes into this category, to be honest, but I feel like he's been getting some credit. But Nero definitely, at the start of the year, he had a tough time, and I wasn't convinced at all, to be perfectly honest. But the amount of engagements he has and the amount of impact he has on some of these maps is incredible. Like he's a great player to watch play, really fun. Makes a great pairing to Cap, and like Capsidor gets a lot of the credit and the gas because maybe he has a bigger personality and like he's people just talk about him more. He has more highlight moments, maybe. But I think Nero is probably equally as impactful to their success right now. And honestly, since Nero turned it on, like that's when they've really charged up the ladder, to be honest. Because the other guys have been pretty consistent all the time. So
that Boston team, just as a whole, like every time they win too, people are just like they always knock it or always say like, I don't know. Every time it feels like you put Boston high in the power rankings, it's like people are just like, you're overrating them. And it's like,
it still feels weird, to be honest, just because they don't have any players that are like, they don't have any players that you feel like would be in the top 4 before the season begins, you know? And because they formed their team last minute, it feels somewhat strange to put them up there, given what you expected the top 4 to be. But it's fun when this type of stuff happens.
I think that narrative though around them is changing, like especially this stage. Like I feel like they're genuinely top 4 now, like 4th.
I think they have to be. I don't know who goes above them. Like it has to be London, Boston.
London,
like
right?
I can't. Like, but then after FaZe OpTic, like no one becomes between London and like it has to be that 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't see how anyone can be above those 4.
LA Thieves before, but after the major, they've kind of crumbled. And then
it was Toronto above Boston, but now that can't be the case.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And then Toronto, like arguably, is right there with them, but below them right now. And then the only other team you can really argue is actually, I would say Florida has been charging up the power rankings the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So Florida can keep it up, like,
maybe
but like
Florida's right now, to be honest.
It's the power rankings in that like, I would say like 5 to 8 is in a very weird spot right now, where it could literally change any of those 4 teams, no matter like within like a week, you know. So this major will be pretty telling about who kind of stumbles out of the gates, you know?
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us this episode, live on Twitch, after the fact on YouTube. Leave us a like if you enjoyed, on the podcast platforms as well. Thanks all for watching. Fantastic show. We've got another cracking week of matchups coming up. Then we're going to talk about those, and then we're going to preview the major, because it's been a hectic week of COD, or hectic month of COD already, and there's more to come. We'll probably do overrated players next week or the week after, because that might be always slightly more spicy, I think, doing it that way around. But we made a good start. If you haven't watched the Dashy doc, give it a view. I think we're going to go and raid Teddy Rex's stream, so I think that's the plan. So thanks all for watching. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time. that's the end of the official podcast. And now, whenever the stream ends, the stream ends.